Hello again.
Hello.
Hi, Kathy. Hi, Jim. Hi, Jamie.
Hello.
You got a new background.
Oh yeah, it's still left up. We did a staff thing with your favorite, like a favorite movie scene or something. So I have
Fun.
Good Will Hunting.
I kind of like the one where the guy was jumping out of the helicopter that you had the last time I talked to you.
Laura, do you remember this scene?
I, to be honest, I knew it was Matt Damon, but no. This is.
It's How Do You Like Them Apples?
Ah, yes. It's a good one.
How's the baby?
It's gonna be 2.
That's crazy.
It's gonna be 2 next week. Yeah.
Not really a baby anymore.
No.
Yeah, no, she's full on toddler.
She's now a little person.
Yeah, she is. How are your kids?
Old.
Yeah.
Your kids are old?
12 and 10.
Oh my gosh.
That's crazy.
How are they feeling about staying home from school? Well, school at home, I guess is a better way to say it, right?
One of them loves it. The other needs to go to school.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Hi, Jim.
Oh.
I have nothing from Corey. I have nothing from Susan. Jose has a conflict. So if we can get one more person here, Kathy, we could at least get rolling.
How many do we need for quorum?
3. I know. Come on, somebody weigh in here.
Oh, someone's connecting.
There we go.
Hi, Susan. Hi, Kevin.
Hello. Sorry, I was on mute. Didn't know it.
Yeah, I didn't know I was too.
No worries.
It's been a long day.
Have you been a Zoomathon today?
More telephone calls, which is been kind of nice.
Wow, that's a change of pace.
I prefer the telephone calls over the Zoom, to be honest.
Kathy, I just got an email from Corey saying he's running late. Do you want to go ahead and get started?
Well, I think Jim is our vice chair.
Oh, that's right. I'm so sorry. My apologies, Jim.
That's all right.
Totally forgot we had elections.
I did.
Well, Jim, if you'd like to do the honors, jump in.
Well, I'm not too sure how to get it started here. What do I just call the meeting?
That's a good start.
All right, let's start there.
Do you need a second
We need a second.
or a motion?
No.
Okay,
No.
good.
No. So I'm going to say the was called to order at 4:03. And the next item, Jim, would be approval of the July minutes.
Let me pull those up. Of course, I have nothing open in front of me.
I'll move approval.
There we go.
We need a motion to approve the minutes?
Yeah, we need a second here.
Okay.
Sorry, Jim, I'm carrying on for you.
That's fine. That's fine. I just got everything pulled up. So
Okay.
I move to approve the minutes.
So we have a first from, was that
It doesn't
Kathy?
matter whichever, yeah,
Yes, you're always interchangeable.
yeah.
I'm going to say Kathy was first because that's who I heard first.
Okay.
And Susan seconded.
Oh my gosh, I withdraw then.
Too late. Object. Okay.
I object.
And then Jim, either further discussion or voting.
I mean, I don't think there's any further discussion needed on them unless somebody else does.
All those in favor then, are we?
Yeah, all those in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay.
Aye.
All right, Jim, moving on to hotel reports.
Oh, well, I wish I had some good news, but it's a whole lot of the same. You know, we're trudging along. Some of the properties in the portfolio are able to start bringing some people back here and there. Unfortunately, it does not include Middleton. There's just not enough business to support it at this time. Yeah, I mean, losing the Big Ten football teams really hurt for this year, so that's painful. Not to mention all the smaller sports as well. I mean, you know, even the incremental revenue and travel from that helps, but those are all gone too. So, you know, we're really kind of refocusing right now on Q1 of next year and trying to hang on to everything that we can and getting creative with the groups that are willing to still entertain. But, you know, there's definitely some groups already at this point that are nervous enough that you know, we're kind of at that point now where groups need to start pulling out their checkbooks and making plans. You know, we're at that 6-month, 8-month mark where they need to start spending money themselves if these programs are going to happen. Nobody wants to do that with the uncertainty. So, you know, there's a lot of tightrope walking with groups in terms of what can we do? You know, how creative can we get to still hold this? And is there a tolerance to still hold it? You know?
Have you had,
Oh, I'm sorry. Do you have any, or pretty much every large event is gone for the fall, I'm assuming, right?
Yeah.
Do you have any small, even micro weddings or anything like that, or no?
We did just hold a 10-person wedding reception, so that was pretty cool. But
That's
no,
sad.
you know, yeah, it really is. It really is. You know, there's just really nothing through the end of the year. I had one group that was holding on for November that now just canceled about a week ago. Dairy Cattle Reproduction Council. So that's actually what I was looking at as I was logging in here. We're trying to look for some dates in 2022 that they can rebook into, but no. Yeah.
How's it looking, Jim, as far as 1 and 2? Have you had, like, I'm thinking in particular of football coaches and track coaches.
Yep.
Because they're not in session. Have you had any conversations with Mike Price or any of those guys?
Not with Mike or with Mark from track coaches, but Dan Brunner actually reached out to me. It was about a month ago. And, you know, he's obviously got his finger on the pulse of everything high school and college sports going on in the state. And
Yeah.
that's when I knew that something was happening with the Big Ten, because he asked about his clinic and whether there'd be availability to host it in October, November, or like July. And I said, well, Dan, are you talking about, you know, moving 21 to October or November of 21 and then potentially July of 22? And he said, no, October or November of 2020. in case the high school season gets moved and these coaches are coaching in the spring, or if the Badgers schedule gets flipped around, he mentioned as
Yeah.
well. So that's when I knew something was going on there. But obviously we can't host the football coaches in October or November of this year. That's not going to be feasible to have 1,000
But is
people.
WIAA still, I mean, are the Big Eight, are they still on for sports for the season?
Big Eight, I don't know. I think so.
I can answer that if you want, Julie and Jim.
Sure.
The WIAA is they are allowing fall sports happen in the fall and leaving it up to school districts. They also have moved fall sports to the spring, where those school districts have allowed and are creating shorter seasons for that. So currently, all the schools basically in Dane County are moving their fall sports to the spring.
The non-Big Eight?
Yeah, like
Yeah, right.
The Big Eight and like the Monona Groves, and I think Edgewood's trying to figure out if they're going to play in the fall, but largely Dane County teams are moving.
Okay.
There might be a couple exceptions, but generally they're moving.
Okay. Oh, I just lost you.
Yeah, so I think that puts obviously the football coaches in jeopardy.
Yeah.
I mean, I know that because they did not hold the clinic this year, that I mean they have to hold it next year sometime. So perhaps it'll get pushed out into July. We have the space and we have the rooms available. Next year's not looking great, as either for us. Missing this.
Hey, Jim, I don't want to put you on the spot here, but if you can answer this, it would be helpful.
Sure.
We've been trying to figure out size-wise, what's the largest group we could do over at the Marriott with the current orders in place
Sure.
for social distancing and group size?
Well, if we're talking kind of a standard group where they have a general session, say some breakouts and a meal room, we're probably looking in the 200 person range.
Okay.
Oh, really?
Would that be
Yeah.
using the trade center for
It
general
would. That'd be
session?
all of our space. That would be everything.
Okay.
So I'd be thinking that'd be like 8 breakouts, 6 of which or so, probably more like 11 breakouts with 6 to 8 of them being for like 10 or 15 people a piece, because that's all we could fit in there. And that being theater style.
Yeah.
And then general session being classroom, 1 per 6 foot. And 10,000 square feet, I can fit about 60 people
Okay.
with physical distancing. So, and then leaving another 10,000 square feet for meals, we can technically put 3 people at a round table because we have the 6 foot rounds. We can space them such that we can put 3 people and still maintain it.
10,000 square feet would only accommodate 60 people.
60 people.
No, that's efficient.
Yeah, it's pretty rough. I don't know. And the thing about it that's frustrating, I think, for a lot of hoteliers in particular is that, restaurants are able to, they're able to go to 50% occupancy in some locale. I mean, I've got properties out on the West Coast right now. They can go up to 75% occupancy, but yet the hotels are stuck with this, must be able to physically distance situation. And,
Yeah.
and I don't know. I'm on both sides of it because I know that the longer this goes on, the more painful it's going to become for our industry. And but I also understand that, we need money badly right now. It goes without saying, If
Are
this
there
carries
any
on for another
opportunities
year,
to-
who knows what will happen? What's that?
Is there anything possibly through Epic that you could offload from their facilities? I don't know what I know they're not, they delayed, they're going back in September, I guess.
Yeah.
But is there anything you think that maybe they don't want to use their facilities and they want to support the economy, the communities?
Yeah, that's a good question. It's a good question. We've even just trying to I'm sure every hotel, us out in Middleton, we bid to host students when they come back into town. Being as far away from campus as we are, it's like, well, if you don't have a line in the water, you're not going to catch a fish. But yeah, we were offering rooms at like $39 a night for a whole semester or whatever it is, and giving up like 3 floors of the hotel to student housing. we didn't get anything because everybody else downtown and much closer by, I'm sure, needed revenue as well. But yeah, I mean, we're trying to come up with everything you can think of. Epic did reach out last week asking what our COVID measures are, what food and beverage options are available at the hotel, if any. So then that was our travel coordinator. Now, she did not lead me to believe that there's going to be some huge influx of travelers, but the fact that she even reached out asking for that information to be able to have handy for people, you know, that was a positive, I guess.
Yeah.
Well, I think maybe a conversation offline, Jim, with you, Laura, and myself, and Mari, to talk a little bit about the meeting potential, because small meetings was one of the markets that we wanted to look at going into 2021. So maybe might be a good idea to pursue that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know that, you know, once we get back up to being able to host 50 people in a meeting room again from this number of 10, I mean, there's quite a few, I mean, I had quite a few groups in June and end of May, early June that were calling about multiple day meetings, you know, nothing huge, but it would be some sort of business that, you know, would put people back in Greenway Station somewhat, you know, and with us not being able to provide all of the meals, invariably they would have been calling for delivery or for pickup and carry out from other restaurants in the area. And yeah, it was just disheartening when we got socked back down to the 10 people per meeting room, because there's not much you can do with that, you know?
Yeah.
There's only so
Yeah,
many
but
depositions you can book.
Yeah, I have an event out in Colorado in April, and I can do a little bit more than that in their rooms compared to
Yeah.
what you've got.
Yep.
Absolutely, and I could put 6 at a 72-inch round.
Nice. Nice.
Doesn't help me, but I can at least put
Yeah.
6 there.
Yeah, I was talking with a gentleman from Tucson from a fraternity that wanted to put 150 people in our 11,000 square foot ballroom. And I said, well, you know, with physical distancing, the number is X. And he's like, yeah, but 105 of them are all from the same household, you know? So I was like, oh, it's kind of some gray area there. And then he mentioned some property in Colorado that's putting 350 in their ballroom in like a week for them. And it's just so all over the board. That's another thing that makes it so difficult for me right now, is trying to, number one, keep track of what's allowable all over the place. And then number two, you know, clients aren't very aware of what the limitations are. So they call you up and you know, they're surprised to hear that they can't hold an event either. So it's,
Yeah.
Well, everything varies by state. So, you know, they're probably not aware.
Yep.
Yeah.
Thank you, Laura. Well, thank you, Jim. I don't see anything from Corey yet. And I think anything that I have that's related to director's remarks would be relevant to the budget. So unless staff has anything, and I think most of our comments are relative to the budget as well. We can move on, Jim.
Sounds like a plan.
That's 20.
So it looks like Jamie's got a couple grant applications to discuss.
Easier if you roll and I just go with it.
Okay, thank you, Jim. I will walk you through our grant request for the 2022 U.S. Interregional Highland Dance Championships. This has been a grant that I've been meaning to put in for a while. This will be, it's basically like their national championships, but they're broken down into 6 regions, and so they all come together as one annually to compete. It's Highland dancers. We're looking for $5,000 to help support the event. It will be hosted at the Marriott West. I would hope that 2022 is a pretty safe year to be able to get this off the ground. Since it rotates among the different regions that host it, the room nights, the history is a little bit hard to track and pick up, but we did find a decent flow for 805 total room nights, with peak room nights at about 200 and a direct spending impact of just over 1,048,000 events. So it's a nice long stay at the Marriott. So it's the sport to help make sure that comes off. And this would come out of the Sports Commission allotted funds for this year.
So you need it for 20, you need the dollars this year for them for 2022?
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Did I miss that?
That's right.
And Julie, our budget is still okay for this year? You're on mute.
Thank you, sorry. I'm trying to pull the spreadsheet up. I know Jamie and I talked about this a couple of weeks ago. So I put 5,000 in here to cover the cost of that. So yes, we are fine. We have the funds available.
I'm here. Sorry, I'm late. Just to let everyone know.
Hey, Corey.
Hey, Corey.
Just trying to figure out who's whispering in Jamie's ear right now.
Yeah, what are those pictures behind you?
We've all commented on that one.
Oh man, I was confused there for a good second or two.
Sorry, Corey.
We were just reviewing the grant request, Corey, for the Highland Dance Championships.
Okay.
And Susan had asked if we had money in the budget to cover the cost of that grant in 2020, and the answer is yes, we do.
So it'd be paid this year and then obviously executed in 22.
Yes.
Okay. I don't want to step on Jim's toes. He can finish this one up.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think it is nice long length of stay. They've got one large dinner and a few regional dinners booked. Otherwise, the group is on their own for meals throughout the length of their stay. So they're definitely going to be, patronizing Greenway Station and all of the shops and restaurants there as well. So I think it's a great program, and I'm supportive.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I went through this one already, and obviously once we get to this point with, I know Jamie usually comes to us when these are kind of serious, so and I'd be obviously in favor of it too. So I think at this point we just entertain a motion. Or was Jim making a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Full amount or any stipulations?
Full amount.
I don't think we need a stipulation since it's this year.
And have they signed the contract already, Jamie? Right? So
Yeah.
if they were to cancel, I'm assuming those dollars would be refunded back?
Yep. Yeah, and we put that into all of our agreements that any incentive funds, if it cancels, it comes back.
Okay.
Anybody want a second? Or any comments?
I can second.
I wasn't here for the discussion, but is there any more discussion? No? All right. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Nope. All right. Carries. We're good.
All right, thank you.
So then, are we moving on to the 21 grant funds requests?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, and that was in the packet as well, right, Julie?
Sorry, yes.
Okay, so Julie and I talked about both this year's funds and also next year's funds requests. We put in a request for 30,000, which is 10,000 less than we put in for this year. We also talked about not using all the funds for this year, trying to make sure we save some money for the future. So our request is 30,000. Currently, we're always in development mode. I think our team does a good job of that, but we're really doubling down on that, as that's what we need to do, is work to build future business as part of our plan. And this has obviously been an incredible tool for us to do that. We're also looking at different angles, non-contact sports for sure is things that we're exploring, especially those in the short run. We're also working on creating more events. We've got about 3 to 4 like kind of in the pipeline that we're working on creating events. Just looking at any way to build a long-term economy, things that are homegrown, and get us off the ground is going, and funds from Middleton help us. We are still working on our travel request. The group has helped support a number of things, from the sales missions that have been successful, helping send a second person to a different trade show here and there. Those have proven to be successful. Obviously, a lot of that stuff's on hold right now as the world figures itself out. But we'd like the opportunity to help support those so we can bring business back as soon as possible for next year. Any questions on that request? Julie, I can talk about groups that we are looking at hosting next year too, if you'd like.
Yeah, I think if you can give us a temperature reading on what's going on in sports tourism.
Yep. So, Jim kind of said part of it earlier. We spent a lot of part of this year canceling and rebooking and rescheduling, which I feel like anybody in the hotel or events industry has been a part of as well. So for instance, we worked on an agreement with the Golden Age Games that we will host them in 2021. So we're working on planning that right now. If it should cancel in 2021, they will bump Sioux Falls and give us 2022. So we've set out that goal as far as that process. We've got other events like an Excel Regionals that we've been re-awarded. They're holding off signing contracts until they figure out what the gymnastics schedule is going to be. From like a national level, what we've seen is, people definitely going to destinations. Oklahoma comes in mind, where in Minnesota for hockey, South Dakota, Nebraska, they're moving to those destinations, getting events off the ground. They're still seeing good numbers, even though there's less competition out there because in general, less people are holding it. Mm-hmm. So some people are pivoting there. Places like Pennsylvania have shut down youth sports. So it's kind of a mixed bag across the country. We do have a number of bids. Actually, we do have 2 good bids out for 2021, which will be interesting to see if we win those. BMX and a USA climbing event. I feel like we're pretty well positioned. We'll see how that cookie crumbles here. So they are still sourcing. A lot of those are going to roll. We'll start working on a little longer timeline in sports pretty soon, as they try to rebook in those destinations where dates are available.
Hey, Jamie, quick question was, I know obviously CrossFit canceled, but I'd heard that they were going to return next year. And I know they've also went through complete ownership and leadership change. Has there been any update on where CrossFit is?
Everything you said is accurate. We're actually going to begin the process for contracting 2021 next week.
Good.
They've also changed their housing company. The new ownership change has been a huge positive for the community.
Yeah.
Reeling from some issues.
I know a lot of CrossFit people who were happy.
Yeah, and he's been
about that.
He's been the perfect person for inclusion,
Good.
listening to people. They've recently announced how they're going to host the games this year. They're going to do a virtual competition for the top 60, and then I believe bring the top 5 in person somewhere in Northern California, which is largely just, made for TV. But yeah, the plan is for us to host it next year. And like I said, we'll begin contracting hotel rooms for that next week with some hotel meetings. And then obviously, we talked a little bit about like the WIA, but across the board, the shifting of seasons is really going to throw things out of whack. As athletes will have to decide on what sports to play, if they can play multiple sports. The WIA specifically will look, the championships like softball we host, that may be smaller. They may only bring 4 teams per division instead of 8. So we'll see or 4 teams total. We'll see how that kind of realigns. I think they're still figuring that out. And then also we'll see more, I think, privatization of sports as some people that have the means and are unconcerned about COVID look for ways to compete. So that's kind of the general landscape right now.
As far as the assets that we have in Middleton, I think the high school is still offline until 22. Is that correct? Okay.
Yeah. We couldn't host them for the Golden Age games, but we were able to move pickleball to hitters for the Golden Age games. But yeah, the high school is still generally offline.
Because of the construction?
Yeah, because of construction. And then high schools in general are also, with the shift in season, they don't know what obligations they'll have to the their own sports. So that'll make it also more difficult to book.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I'm still thinking about the one comment you made, Jamie, that Oklahoma was a destination. Whoever would have thought Oklahoma as being a destination spot.
Yeah, Tulsa has done real well.
Good for
year.
them. Yeah. I don't think I could sell my dentist to go there, but I'm glad to hear they're doing well.
Yeah, Toby Keith and Tumbleweeds.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Anyone have any further questions or discussion? Julie, I know we're going to be talking about this, but where are we at with this for next year?
We do have this amount budgeted in the line for MASC. So my recommendation would be that you take up discussion when we get to the 2021 budget.
So you want us to defer it for 10 minutes?
Yeah. That would be great.
You want to just go right into that right now, or is that okay? Or
We certainly can, sure.
is that okay with you, Jamie?
Yeah, it sounds delightful.
And Jamie, you're welcome to hang out with us as we struggle through the discussion here.
Yeah. I will. Thank you.
Laura, are you able to bring up the workbook? So Corey, if you're agreeable, I'm just going to jump in and start rolling.
By all means.
Okay.
Sure.
So I'm going to start, Laura, with the 2021 room tax forecast.
Okay.
Bill and I have been rubbing the crystal ball, and I've been talking to properties, listening to webinars, consulting with our colleagues at Destination Madison, and this is our best forecast based on what we know to date for room tax collections next year. 60%, I think, based on what Jim was just telling us, might be a little optimistic for Q1. I mean, at the time that we did this, it was early July, and I think most people at that point in the tourism industry forecasting world were seeing an uptick in events and a quicker recovery than we're actually seeing. So right now, this is probably a best case scenario. But I'd like to just go ahead and walk through with it with this actual total in mind, and then we'll go through the budget line by line where we have changes, and then I've got some discussion topics for us that we can consider making additional cuts if you feel the need to. So having said that, Laura, why don't you move over to the tourism tab. The tourism revenue tab is just, again, a recap of, if you want to go over there first, sorry.
This one?
Yeah. This basically just shows what the finance projection was for 2021, what we believe we're actually going to generate in terms of room tax revenue. So you can see there's a significant decrease in what we're accustomed to working with here. All right, jumping into the budget. There are some increases as we're moving through the wage section here. Those are primarily due to cost of living increases that the city is anticipating for wages. Do not plan on having an intern, and there was just a slight increase in the longevity for the director. Moving down into the personnel benefits, a little bit of an increase in FICA, health insurance. This insurance line that appears next on the document I'm looking at is out of order, so never mind, I'll just keep rolling here. And then moving into operating expenses. So we've cut back on what we anticipate attending next year in terms of meetings, conferences, conventions, which will allow us to see a decrease in meals. I really think in the first quarter, we're going to be seeing a lot of virtual meetings or hybrid meetings. The next line, supplies and materials. We've got a pretty substantial inventory right now because we haven't been in the office since the middle of March. So I think that we can recognize some savings there. Postage, we're talking about going with an online visitor guide next year, which will help defray some of those costs. Can I just remind you guys to put yourself on mute if you're not speaking? Thank you. Moving on down, no change on website. That's pretty much of a fixed cost with Pilch & Barnett, who manages the hosting of our server. A little bit of a decrease in the communication line with some changes in cell phone expenses and TDS expenses. Buildings and grounds maintenance, we've got all of our landscaping complete as of this year. So now it's basically just going to be keeping that up. So we're going to see a little bit of a decrease in that line. Again, that training budget, national, regional meetings, conferences, conventions, we will not be attending. We're very fortunate in that Destinations International, which is our industry association, will be hosting their meeting in Chicago in 2021. It was supposed to be July of 2020. So that's at least going to give us access to an international meeting that's close to home, and we'll be able to defray expenses and still benefit from that conference. And again, pretty significant decrease in, going back to training. Training also includes memberships. So dues renewals are in there for things like Destination International, Meeting Planners International. It's kind of a odd bucket for memberships, but I inherited that, and there's not enough in there to warrant creating a second line. Just so you know, that's a combination of things. So again, significant decrease in travel. I think utilities are going to be down a little bit. And Laura, I'm going to have you hop up to that insurance line. That is the risk management insurance that gets split out between several departments. There will be a slight increase on that line, so I need to make a change on that one. It's under operating expenses, Laura, sorry.
I'm sorry, what does risk management mean in this sense?
So in this sense, it is general liability, accident, insurance for properties, claims, crime. There's coverage for crime. Does that give you a general sense of what we're looking at there? So that line will increase by $200. Not terribly significant, but we should note that there'll be a change there. Okay, and moving back down, research. We've cut way back on some of the research that we had planned to do for 2020. A lot of that was around millennial travelers. But I do want to continue getting the tourism economics report, which is one of our metrics that we use to evaluate the ROI of tourism in Middleton. And I'd also like to start getting the STAR report. This is a report that's generated by a company that does data collection for properties and how properties are doing in terms of occupancy, average daily rates, RevPAR, some of the things that Bill and I are trying to wrap our arms around so we can do a little bit better forecasting on room tax collections. So that would be an addition to what we're currently doing in the research line. But other than that, nothing projected right now in terms of projects. Software, again, we cut way back on some of the enhancements that we were going to be doing to our SimpleView CRM tool. I do still want to continue with the designer program that we purchased for Mari to use. And we also have a program that Laura uses for documents. They're minimal fees at best. So pretty good drop in that line. And then the brand refresh, that will entail the remainder of the agency fees to Belter and Lincoln to provide the execution portion of the brand refresh, and then the actual execution and production of all the things that we're going to have to rebrand. And Mari, if you want to jump in and comment on that, feel free.
There we go. Sorry, I had you all minimized so I could see the Excel sheet. So if you guys had questions specifically about what we were thinking fell under branding, I can give you kind of, let's see, where is it? I have, here we go. 1 second. Trying to get this thing to minimize. Okay, so for rebranding, in 2021, we'll have a little more than 25,000 left on our contract because 50 will be paid out in 2020 is what we're looking at. So for execution, some of the items that we're talking about are, we have a few print pieces that will have to be redesigned as well as printed, and we'll be charged by the hour for those redesigns. We will also have to replace stationery, the decal on the car, the visitor center signage outside the visitor center, giveaways. Anything, some of our newer giveaways actually just have our website, so those we can actually continue to use, but anything that had the old logo on it, we'll have to, you know, figure out what we're going to use with that, or I'm not even sure. The trolley, if we continue with the trolley into 21, 22, I mean, excuse me, into 22, then we'll have to actually redo everything that we just did in February, and we actually do know exactly how much that ended up costing. This doesn't include a new website or website updates. That would be something that we might have to bump into 22 because of budget purposes. I mean, unless the commission says you want to do everything in one go and you want to increase the amount of money we're asking for. But otherwise, that would just get bumped into 22. And we're planning on launching in January of 22. And so as long as we swap out the new logo, which may or may not look interesting, but there's a different way to do it. It's not the optimal way, but given COVID and budgetary concerns, I think that quite a few people would understand why we couldn't do a new brand and a new website simultaneously. Do you guys have any other questions? That was kind of a very quick and pretty look.
I just want to jump in there, and from what I can remember, the website had just been rebuilt when I started with tourism in 2016. So it will be 5 years old next year, which we felt was definitely time for a refresh. And I want to say it was $25,000 or $35,000. I know at the same time, tourism also covered the cost of rebuilding a website for parks, and one of them was 25, one of them was 35. So just a point of reference on what the possible expense could be.
And are we committed to, I mean, we have to do the trolley and pay for the trolley?
Well, I'm going to put that in the parking lot, Keith, and that's on my discussion sheet. So
Yeah.
if you wouldn't mind waiting for a couple of minutes, we'll get to that one.
Of course.
Any questions for Mari? Thanks, Mari.
No problem.
Finishing up that section are the other expenses. That is our friends in the city attorney's office. We will most likely incur expenses next year to talk about Hilton Barnett. And if we want to move forward with a contract renewal with them. Destination Madison contracts is going to be up for review, and Simple View is also going to be up for review. Any questions on the operating expenses in that section? Okay. Moving on to page 2. For all intents and purposes, the Mobile Visitor Center, which is this next section, is inactive, with the exception of insurance, which is insurance for the car. Most of the maintenance work is now being done by the gentleman over at the Municipal Operating Center. So we're getting some pretty outstanding service without incurring a lot of expenses to make sure that our vehicle is being taken care of. They generally rotate cars every 5 years The tourism vehicle was up for rotation, and Brian who heads the department, and I talked about that, and we decided that really, I mean, that car has not seen that much usage in the 5 years that we have had it. So we're going to push that off for another couple of years. I think it's important that we keep it. We do use it, and we need a vehicle that we're able to haul sizable carloads of stuff over to show site. So I think it's worth hanging on to the vehicle, but just looking ahead in a couple of years, that will be a question that we'll have to take under advisement. Any questions on the Mobile Visitor Center? Hearing none. Moving into other operating expenses. Tourism grants, I dialed that back just a little bit in my head. I was going to go with 40,000 because part of me says now is the time that we want to offer incentives to new business to come to Middleton. But I went ahead and left it at 30,000, which is what we started out with finance, and we can come back to and revisit that. You've heard Jamie's request for the Sports Commission. That is a little step back from what we had budgeted for this year. But again, I think these are all sales initiatives that we need to support, especially because we don't have a sales team at Middleton Tourism, and we rely pretty heavily on our friends at Destination Madison and the Madison Area Sports Commission to keep our name out there in the regional and the national marketplace. Trade show grants, we can come back and revisit this one as well. Corey and Laura and I met and talked about, what are the possibilities of face-to-face meetings in the group tour world. Jim and I exchanged emails a couple of days ago. We're thinking that a lot of the association meetings that they would normally go to will probably not be held in at least Q1 and most likely Q2. And with some staffing changes over the staffing model changes that are taking place in Atrium, not sure who would be able to represent us. So again, that would be an area. I know a lot of these events that the Marriott folks were attending are also being attended by Destination Madison salespeople, and if we can team up with them and collaborate on some of those initiatives, I think that's the way to go in 2021. Advertising, we have some other suggestions for possible cuts in this line, but you can see we're taking a somewhat significant step back in some of the things that we've wanted to do. The bottom line is really nobody is advertising to anybody outside of the boundaries of their state right now, and that's probably going to hold true for the remainder of the year unless you are a resort destination and you've got a high appeal for the leisure market. I sat on a webinar that the Wisconsin Department of Tourism did a couple of weeks ago, and the state is still advertising to folks within the state at this point, at least for the fall. And I think we're all just kind of feel it out and see what it's looking like in Q1 and Q2, and if we can go across the border. So we can come back and revisit that one as well. Brochures, again, that's another topic of conversation. I put the full amount in here, but there are some possibilities for reductions if we do not reprint and do some minimal changes to the 2020 guide and just try to get through the year with the least amount of expenditures as we can on that particular piece of collateral. The other line below that was the branding money, which has just been moved up into its own category right now. Pilch and Barnett, there is a bit of an increase there, which incurred when we signed the multi-year contract with them. Actually, it should have been at 27 for 2020. So we're going to be spending a little more on them this year than we had anticipated. Destination Madison payments, they receive 17% of whatever our room tax collections are. So this is representational of what we anticipate that's going to be. Jamie, I'm sorry, that's a pretty significant cut in the budget for Destination Madison. I think that Diane is aware of what she can anticipate. And then moving on to the last page here, public relations, we've cut back on some of the promotions that we had talked about doing, again, outside of our borders. So we'll see a little bit of savings there. And then the last item on the list, of course, is the trolley. There is a 2% increase in the hourly fee for the trolley going into 2022. So we will now be paying $103 per hour for that vehicle. At this point, does anybody have any questions, comments, concerns?
I have a question.
Yeah.
Your building maintenance projects, is this the work that you were looking to get done to the building?
I'm sorry. Yes. Yeah, and I do have that on my my list of things to discuss. I stayed at the amount that was in here, and we'll try to give you a sense of what the deeper dive is going to look like.
Is that something that you guys can get done sooner than later? So when you're ready to go back into the office?
I'm going to put that in the parking lot and circle back around with that one.
Okay.
So at the end of the day, we're going to be experiencing a shortfall, which means we're going to have to ask for more funds from the reserves. Right now, I'm saying that that's going to be $308,000 and some change. The caveat to this is we have gotten a check in the second quarter from Expedia for collections that have been made online by folks that are reserving rooms, because that's the first check we've gotten from them. We don't really know what to expect. So Bill and I decided we were just going to leave this off to the side and not even factor that in. If we get some revenue from Expedia, that's going to be terrific. That can help offset some things that maybe we're taking off the list that we could consider doing in 2021. We did not include the Holiday Inn Express and Suites in the room tax collections because, again, we don't have any history and we don't have a forecast from them. And we don't have any other short-term rentals included here, like Airbnb and HomeAway. So we may see a little cushion. I mean, we'll see some sort of a cushion from the Holiday Inn Express and Suites. Again, just Expedia is kind of that's a wild card right now. But at this point, I'm saying we are going to have to ask for funds from the tourism reserves.
I just wanted to add a couple things too, and I don't know if you guys already talked about this, but one thing I did find out, STAR had a conference last week and some of our revenue folks attended that, and for first quarter, it kind of sounded like that was going to be more in the 35 to 40%-ish range is what the predictions are down to now. Who knows though at this point? Like, I mean, I just don't think you can predict that, and I don't think you can budget for that because
on the collections.
I mean, and I just think that it could be, we could completely underperform what we think, and then we might overperform. I don't know.
I know.
You know, but just to throw that out there, just so
Yeah.
you're aware of.
I think so much is dependent on what happens in Dane County and with the executive orders and the public health orders,
Right.
and you know, the limits on the numbers of people that can gather in one space.
And I don't, you know, and the one thing with the Holiday Inn too is I don't know that how much that'll really impact increased collections with the demand being as low as it is. It's just gonna flutter out, you know, it'll spread out even more to where we have the same amount of rooms booked but more inventory. So it'd be nice
Right.
if it did, but I
Yeah.
don't know if we'll see a really big, you know, change there or not.
In the meetings that I'm going to for the Plan Commission and some of the other city committees, I'm just not hearing a lot about new development or businesses coming into the community. I mean, Kathy, if you know any more on that topic, then I might be aware of. But to Corey's point, I'm just not sure who they're marketing to. I mean, I think they're all kind of marketing to the same
Right.
bucket of people, so to speak, and
Well, from the hotel
I just
standpoint
don't.
right now, and I was gonna say Jim could probably attest to this too, is we're all kind of, you know, circling and chasing after the same business right now, which a lot of that is booking through OTAs. So like that's what, you know, like your Expedias and such, you know, so everyone's kind of circling after the same stuff. And then, you know, and you even having more inventory, and it could have a reverse effect where the rates go down. I mean, we just don't know. It's just so hard to predict. You know,
Yeah.
perfect world. Hopefully, in the first quarter, we can just forget about 2020 and move forward, and everything is back to normal.
Right, right.
But I mean, I think all this looks good. I mean, I really the cuts, nothing really jumped at me as a I guess really the you know, and the sales, any sales efforts, you know, that we have kind of an advantage there, having funds available, because there's, you know, for a lot of DMOs throughout the state, selling opportunities are kind of getting nixed left and right because they may not have the extra funds that we have. So that's, you know, an advantage for us. So, you know, I just would like to see that have an opportunity to keep going. You know, if we have to squeeze anything out, that's where I would like to see it, you know. And you and I had spoke about the different trade shows and stuff, and you know, if it works out for Marriott or for you, you know, do we budget for any of those other funds? Did you say? I missed that.
The only thing that I budgeted in the travel and training budget for tourism was IMEX, which is the international industry event for meeting professionals that's held in Las Vegas
Right.
annually. And we've participated the last 2 years in the Wisconsin booth. The Department of Tourism basically covers some of the cost of that booth. And then it's been anywhere from 4 to 6 DMOs that co-op in this booth and then split the remainder of those costs. And I'm thinking, you know, IMEX I think it's scheduled for September of 2021. And hopefully by that time, we'll be able to meet again face to face. Other than that, I haven't budgeted for any sales related activities nationally. I did include Circle Wisconsin,
Okay.
and it was the Circle Wisconsin Marketplace for travel and training for us.
I just I think my only concern is, you know, or maybe, you know, maybe it's not a concern, but do we need to maybe consider adding, I know there's not a whole lot of funds available, but bumping that trade show one back up just a little bit, even as a just in case, you know, because I think the problem is, you know, a lot of the first quarter stuff we're thinking is going to go virtual, but, you know, we still might have some registration fees and such. I just don't want to make it difficult, you know, to maybe try to have an opportunity, you know, if there's an opportunity there that we can decide on a whim. I don't know. I guess I would leave it back to you. If you think it's easier for us to go back, you know, to finance later on, or is it better to just try to see if we can get that approved now, knowing that if we don't use it at the end of next year, it just goes back where it came from to begin with?
how much are you thinking should be added into what we currently have?
You know, because you know when you and I talked, that 30,000 we were kind of looking at for, you know, bus stuff, and now granted we don't know, you know, what is going to cancel and what is not. You know, I don't know that we need to bump that up to 80 grand like it was, but you know, I just don't know if we need like a cushion as a just in case. You know, like if there's an opportunity to go with, you know, Jamie and Brandon, or Brandon to teams, or you know, trying to diversify some of that selling that we're doing. You know, if it's maybe worth just putting in a little extra money in there. You guys have probably a better idea of what that stuff costs than I do. I just think it might be a good idea if we can do that to maybe consider.
I agree with Corey, Julie. I think he makes a really good point, because if all of a sudden things start turning around sooner than we anticipate, and you don't have the dollars, and if we don't have to spend it, then you don't spend it, right? So I would probably throw another 10 or 15,000 in there. I wouldn't put you more than 50, maybe 45. But I think having a cushion is a good idea, because you're right.
Take it up to 45?
But I just was throwing that out there.
No, that's fine.
Yeah, that's what I said. I agree with Corey. I mean, if all of a sudden there is a vaccine and we can start increasing the number of people that can come into the Dane County, and we can start getting more people into meeting rooms, you might have a flood, and you might be able to go out to some of those events that have been put on hold. Who knows? I mean, I'd rather have you guys have the money than say, I'm sorry, we can't go, we don't have the cash.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's really like the only thing that really jumped at me. Otherwise, I think this all looks great. It's a tall task, I know, going through all this stuff.
Well, it's kind of an interesting experience, because the last 3 years I've been trying to figure out how to spend money.
Right.
Now I'm trying to figure out how not to spend money, and never going to the council and asking for reserve funds. I'm not sure what kind of a reaction I'm going to receive. So I want to make sure that everything that we have here has a rationale behind it. And I totally agree with you that if it's a sales initiative, we should be supporting those. So I think what I heard was, let's add another 15 to trade shows.
In terms of you know, what would $15,000 get you with in terms of meetings or teams? Would that be like maybe 3 opportunities? Do you think?
I was going to say 3. I mean, I would think MPI, PCMA. I think the Marriott went to. I'm trying to think of that one. It's got an acronym, starts with a G. It was the Great Lakes something.
I mean,
and that was more of a regional meeting. Do you know the one I'm talking about? Yeah.
Oh yeah, GBTA.
Yeah, thank you. You know, so if that's what we want to do, I think it's a matter of then going back through there and seeing what will give us the best return for our investment.
Well, I think that's a good idea. I mean, and who knows, like I said, what's going to hold with, you know, what's going to happen next year. I mean, I think 3 opportunities would be great. I honestly think even if we bump that up to 50, you know, if you think you can do that, you know, that's the if, but, you know, I wouldn't probably go any more than 50, you know, and then we can show we're still scaling some stuff back. But when you look at that bottom number already from what you've scaled off from 2020, I mean, that's a pretty big,
my pushback on that, Corey, would be, this is a super optimistic budget,
right?
With a pretty sizable room tax collection. You know, if that doesn't transpire,
right? Well, and I think at that point too, we could probably take that stuff into consideration again, though.
So here's a couple. Let me toss these out as you know, maybe we can just do some reallocating here. So for tourism grants, you know, historically we've done 5,000 per grant, which gives us 6 grants at 30K. We do have 3 groups that we had given grants to for 2020 that had to postpone And I do believe all 3 of these have rebooked at the Marriott. The Treelog Stevny, is that how you pronounce that, Jim?
Treelog Stevna.
Stevna. That was 1900. Open Air Classic, which is the convertible, the group that does the convertible traveling.
Yeah.
They were 5. And Wisconsin Association of Mutual Insurance Companies. Did Pat Laws come back?
I do not think that they have rebooked. I think they were scheduled for Stevens Point for next year, and they weren't able to narrow down dates for 22. They're already booked for 22 with us, so that had already been booked prior to them canceling 2020.
Okay.
So he was probably asking about rolling that if he reached out to you for his 2022 that's already been an existing definite.
Okay.
So
Since
we have, are
27.
you saying we have 15,000 committed out of that for next year already?
No,
Oh, okay.
no. We have 1,000. We don't have anything committed out of it
Oh,
for next
well,
year.
that's like, I mean, is that something, you know, times are tough, so I don't think a lot of people are going to be expecting grants, but what if we move that even in half? I mean, and we're just going to have to make, you know, smaller, you know, acceptances, or if we have a request, it's got to be something pretty amazing that if we approve it. But
Yeah.
you know, I don't think anyone would really bat an eye if we froze our tourism grants for a year based on the current circumstances. I don't.
But let's keep in mind, these conferences haven't had anything to do this year, so they haven't been spending their dollars.
Right.
Right.
And most of them probably had some type of a force majeure, so they weren't paying cancellation penalties for the most part. So if they're investing their monies and taking care of their funds, they should be able to, you know, maybe not come to us in 21. And Corey, I agree with you. We've got to tighten our belt as well. Doesn't mean we can't expand it again in 20 for the 22 budget, but I think if we can put it in another place, we should. Can we move dollars from line item to line item during the year, or are they pretty?
Well, we as a tourism commission have been pretty flexible about doing that amongst ourselves.
All right.
I think unless it's a significant amount of money, once the budget has been approved, we're fine with making those adjustments on our
Okay.
own.
All right.
And they've been relatively minor. So I had actually figured on cutting that in half as well. So we're aligned with that one.
I mean, if and I don't know if we have to change our grant criteria again, but you know, it's like maybe we just say, you know, the max grant for next year is $1,500 or $1,000 or something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good idea. And then that way we can service more people.
Yeah, and you know, and I don't know if we leave, you know, if we leave $10,000 in there and just move 20 down to, you know, the selling, you know, then you can really still hit maybe 10 opportunities. And that's assuming that we even have the ask. You know, I don't know that we will or not.
Yeah,
who knows?
I know. Well, the other place I think we can make some adjustments is in the destination partnership line. I put 30 in there as a placeholder, and that was just based on the number that the outdoor sports complex had asked us for. I mean, historically, what's gone in here is Circle Wisconsin, sponsorship. We've done things like Destination Madison's experience workshops, Essential Madison experiences. We used funds out of here for the Stonehorse Green consultant. So it's been a combination of tourism development projects and sponsorships for smaller events like Girls on the Run. We made a small contribution toward Bachfest last year to support the Capitol Breweries event. So you know, depending on how you all feel about the outdoor sports complex right now, I think as much as I would love to support them, now is not the year. And I'm not sure that, I don't know where they are right now, to be honest with you, and their fundraising and working through some of the gates they've run into as far as the access points. Jamie, if you know any more, if you've talked to Yuri in the last couple of weeks, they presented to us, was that last month they were here? I think it was.
Yeah.
And there were some issues with that access road getting built, and they were exploring some other options for that. So we could cut that in half and take that from 30 down to 15. And that would basically, you know, and then just roll that into that difference into the trade show grants.
As you're saying, as opposed to offering the grant or moving it out of the grant fund?
I'm sorry?
Are you saying doing that as opposed to moving it out of the the grant fund, the tourism
So
grant fund?
what I'm suggesting is that we reduce the tourism grant to 15.
Okay.
We reduce the destination partnership grant to 15.
And then, so
And
that's
so
30.
that gives us 30. And
And then-
we could move that 30 into the trade show grant.
Yeah, I mean, I think that works. Like, you know, we obviously we'll know later on in the year if we need to move stuff around or if we're not going to use it, but I'd be okay with that.
Okay. Advertising. Right now, we've got $36,000 budgeted for TV ads for Iowa and Minnesota, and online ads for Iowa and Minnesota. I mean, if we had to, we could eliminate that as we're going through the year. I don't know, Mari, if we're at a point where we have to commit to Pilch and Barnett for that expense. Have we gone that far with them?
No, we'll do our TV contracts before Christmas, probably.
Okay.
Last year, though, we actually didn't do them till January or February because we couldn't participate in that process until we had signed the new contract. So I would have to reach out to Suzanne to find out exactly when the deadline was, because I'm not sure if she reserved us spots anticipating the contract to be signed or if they really just weren't due. Because we were already talking about lessening the Chicago TV reach in Q1 and picking back up in Q2.
Yeah.
So we'll have to talk to her about that as well. But anyway, I'm guessing around Christmas time before the new year is when we'll probably have to have those conversations.
So my point is, folks, we do have we've got some latitude with that one. If we need to start making cuts, I think that would be an area that we would cut first.
So are you saying, you're saying that we would cut like next year, for instance, if we...
Yeah, if we start going through the year and we see that we're in trouble, or
Okay.
as we're getting closer to the date of having to make a commitment on this, and we see that, you know, people aren't crossing the border and it's not in our best interest to be advertising in those areas, then we can have Pilch and Barnett start negotiating with us, which is essentially what we did on the television advertising that we've done for 2020. So there's some room to play in that line. Brochures, again, we've been talking about doing just an online brochure. This would be the full boat. What's budgeted here would be a redesign and a reprint for 2021. But it's possible that we can get that down to 15 without doing a major reprint and a major redesign. So there's a little bit of a cushion in there. And then the building projects, we've been having a hard time getting people to respond to the request to come in here and take a look at this floor and try to salvage the floor. The people that Laura have spoken to are recommending that we just pull it up or cover it and lay something down on top of it. But trying to preserve the wood that's in here is not sound like it's a workable option. Laura, if you want to jump in with
Yes, I would
anything
say
else on that one.
that is accurate. Definitely going over the top is what most people are recommending. The size and the age of the boards, that are there now, most the people that I've been able to have come in and look at it said that they're likely not even, once they get the nails out that are just massive, they're likely going to split, and to be able to repurpose them would be close to impossible. So that's kind of where we're at now, and I'm getting a little bit closer. I'm getting some actual quotes of a few more visits tomorrow. So hopefully we'll have some actual costs.
The other thing that we're hoping to do as part of this project is get these windows replaced. So Susan, in answer to your question a while ago, we're trying to get this work done in 2020. I think that's our goal, so that we can be back in here toward the end of the year, and be up and running during the holiday season. That said, when the facility folks came over to do some consulting with us, and we started talking about maybe asking the museum to relocate, and we would take the back half of this building, they started talking about taking down walls, and actually reconfiguring the space, which puts us in a kind of a different trajectory, which we're still trying to grapple with. From a timeline perspective, the challenge is going to be the lease that the city has with the Middleton Area Historical Society just renewed in June. It's an automatic annual renewal unless either party asks for termination, and the termination notice has to be extended at least 90 days in advance. So I'm at a point right now where I think what I need from the commission is a recommendation to move forward with an advocacy for the termination of the lease and having the city release the entire building to the tourism department. That recommendation will have to go to the Common Council for approval. And in between today and that step, I'm going to have some conversations with our friends over at the Historical Society to just, talk through what it is that we're trying to do here, see if there's any way that we could collaborate with them and still have some sort of a historical presence in the building, down in the front where the visitor center is located. Maybe some of the photographs that they've got back here and some of the railroad artifacts would be able to find a home down in the front of the building. I mean, the reality is if we take over the back half of the building, it won't be open to the public. So whatever we do with the Historical Society will have to be down in the visitor center portion of it.
Julie, this is Kathy.
Yeah.
I was president of the Historical Society when this was agreed on, that we would be using the back as the museum. I know there's things there that wouldn't be hard to move out, but I'm thinking of things like that dollhouse, what to do with something like that. And I think that they're going to need a fair amount of time to get their head around this and how to proceed with it. I might feel more comfortable if you floated the idea already, or have
no.
You
the only thing the only conversation I've had was Jeff was about the flooring.
Yeah.
And having to do this remediation work, which means they're going to have to move the stuff out at some point in order to be able to do that. So he is aware that we're going to be doing some work in here, but that's the extent of the conversations that I've had.
When we moved in there, the idea was at that time that there would be someone stationed at the tourism on Saturdays, and that never happened. Yes. So that's part of the reason that it's not, but it did give us a lot more exposure because of the Raleigh House being closed so much. They're also talking, maybe putting some history spaces in the library or whatever too. So I think that it might be worthwhile just to talk a little further with Jeff before we make any kind of recommendation. So I think that it's going to take a little bit. There's things in there that fine, that it's no big whoops if they're gone, but some things they've got to get their head around. So
Sure.
that would be my recommendation.
What are they going to do when it has to be removed anyway to do the repairs? So, I mean, they're going to have to start figuring out a place to store these items anyway. So,
well, when you're doing flooring, typically you can start on one end and kind of work and move things back over the other end and whatnot to do that, kind of do the repairs.
well, right, but not if they're going to want to expand the space. I think it just delays the tourism department for creating what could be a much more efficient office, and they have to from a social distancing. They can't even go back into work and social distance properly if Julie needs the three of them to be in the office right now.
Right. But, you know, that said, they did renew for a year. I mean, I don't know what you can do with that.
I feel like though, like it's kind of that renewal, that lease it's bona fide storage for them. Like, cause I mean, I think some of that stuff has not been updated. I mean, you know, Julie said there's a dummy or you know, like there's no clothing on some stuff. Like, you know, so it's like nobody's really even been back there, you know. So I like kind of had the idea of, if we had the space, is, you know, if people are truly interested in even like the railroad history, with it being the depot, is if we can figure out a way to display that stuff, you know, an abbreviated amount maybe in the front.
I agree.
You know, I just don't feel like anyone really goes back there. I guess I'm not there every day, but you know, that it, to me, the last time I was back there, it was, you know, it was just like, looked like it hadn't been touched in a while. So I really wasn't really sure.
Yeah. And I think, you know, Laura and Mari could attest to this. Most of the people that come in here are interested in the railroad aspects of it. So I think if we're going to do something with them, it makes sense to have it be about the depot and the history of the building. I mean, right now back here, it's a kind of a quasi World War II memorabilia and an old office. It's just kind of a hodgepodge of stuff. So, you know, I think your point is well taken, Kathy, and I would certainly have a conversation with the folks over at MAHS before we did anything.
Right.
I'm just trying to, you know, figure out what's the best process to go through here in terms of next steps, because if we're going to do this, it should all be done at the same time. Right. And the longer we delay, I mean, Mike really doesn't want any of us working in here right now until this remediation project is complete. And if we have to wait until next June, that seems kind of counterproductive.
Right. Well, I know since that museum was put in place that they have taken on, and they've climate control for the carriage house. So they may have storage that I don't know about that wouldn't be a big, you know. So I think just have the conversation. Yeah. And maybe we could come back next month and we could talk more about where we're at with that.
Okay.
Would it help, Julie, if the commission puts something together formally that says we would like the staff to start pursuing this, so it gives you more legs? Or
I think we actually started the conversation last month, but I did not put it in the minutes. So I will include this conversation in the minutes, and I'm feeling like what I'm hearing is let's defer discussion until I've had an opportunity to talk with MAHS. Does that sound?
I think that would be a good thing to do. Okay. I mean, just as to feel them out, hear what they got to say. I think they're pretty easy to work with.
Oh yeah, yeah.
I'm not recommending. There could be a good compromise, because I still think it could be nice to have some of that stuff on display. You know, but.
Well, that whole front lobby could be redecorated and utilize those pictures and the railroad stuff much better than we currently do.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of what I think too.
Okay, and I'm not suggesting we just get rid of them, but I think we need to move the process along a little bit faster in order for the construction to get done, we need to get that building clean so you guys can get back in there. And so yeah, we just need to get the
Okay.
conversation moving sooner than later, in my opinion.
Yep, no, I agree with what everybody is saying here. So I'm going to note that the recommendation is that I meet with MAHS and talk through options
Mhm.
and then report back at the next meeting. How does that sound?
I know they usually meet the first Wednesday or Thursday of the month, the board
Okay.
meeting, so.
Okay. So in view of that, I would recommend that we leave this 48,000 in here. If nothing else, it might get carried over from 2020 into 2021, depending on how quickly we can move this through the pipeline. All right, the last item that I had on my list was the trolley. I just want to go on record as saying it's a huge expense. It's an amenity. The original intent, from what I've been able to discern, was to move folks from the hotel into the downtown areas, primarily coming from Epic. We do have a contract with Badger Bus Lines that does not expire until 2022. John has been pretty good so far and been very understanding about the circumstances. So it might be possible to go back in there and renegotiate this with him and change what we've committed to, which right now is Tuesday through Friday, from like 5:30 to 10:30, and then we added extra hours on Saturday to cover the weekends. I mean, he might be willing to look at, just a Thursday, Friday, Saturday scenario. And by that time, I mean, this thing doesn't start until March, the end of March. It doesn't start until April, so we're through a whole quarter. So it's,
Is the conversation to keep funds in there and then try to renegotiate and scale back based on the times, or what's the direction?
I think the question that I'm asking you, well, the directive that I'm looking for is, how do you want to proceed? Do you want to go in? Do you want me to go in and talk to him about renegotiating at this point? Do you want to just go full bore here with what we have noted and address it as we start moving through the year?
I feel like that's probably, in terms of being a good partner, is probably, in my opinion, the best route to go.
Okay.
Is to leave this as is, because he's really kind of been a great partner on his end and been flexible this year, so if there is any ounce of an opportunity to try to make good on that next year, I mean, at least we would have the option. I guess that's my opinion. I don't know what everyone else thinks,
Okay.
but I think that
I
it's
agree.
probably warranted that we want to look at scaling it back.
Yeah.
Based on occupancies and such, which is what we've already talked to him about.
I agree.
Okay. All right, so we will leave that as it is. So just to recap, what I heard was we're going to cut 15 from tourism grants, add 30 to trade show grants, cut 15 from destination partnership, leave advertising as is for now, leave brochures as is for now, leave maintenance, and leave the trolley as they've been presented.
Looks good to me. I mean, is our next step is you need a motion for recommendation to the council, correct?
I need you to approve the draft budget.
Okay.
And then next steps will be my presentation to finance, the mayor, and Mike Davis next
Okay.
week.
So,
It's subject to change. I mean, the last 3 years, they have not made any changes, but again, we're going to the reserves, which is something new.
Right.
So I'm not sure if we'll get pushback on any of these or not. And then if we make it through that round, Bill will present this budget with all of the other budgets to the Finance Committee. And I believe our meeting with Finance is September 23rd. It's the latter. I gave us a little bit of cushion there in case we do have to come back together in September and talk about any changes. But this is what I will present then next week with these 3 changes to tourism grant, trade show grant, and destination partnership.
So you need a motion for approval for this draft with the discussed changes, basically.
Yes. Yes.
Anybody want to make that motion?
I'll make that motion.
I'll
All
second
right.
it.
Was that Kathy?
That was Kathy, yeah.
And I seconded it, Jamie, or Julie.
Okay.
I'm sorry, that was Susan.
Does
Thank you.
anyone have any further discussion or questions at all? No? All right. All those in favor then say aye.
I
Right.
And does anyone oppose? Nope. All right. Well, that carries then. So we are good to go on that.
Thank you very much, everybody.
Do we
Awesome
have to do
job.
something with Jamie's request?
No, because he just got
No,
approved.
Jamie's
Okay.
part of the budget, and so
Hey,
he's,
Jamie.
He
Jamie's
still has
going
that
along-
strange
Jamie's
man
going along
whispering in
for
his
the
ear.
ride now. Jamie is now on the roller coaster with me, so I'll give you an update, Jamie, after I meet with finance at all next week.
Great,
And then-
thank you, everyone.
Fill you in on next steps, and I will. I'll just shoot an email off to Diane and let her know what the budget number is for Destination Partnership and how
Sounds
I,
great.
excuse
Thank
me,
you, everyone.
Destination Madison, and how I derive that.
Bye, Jamie.
Bye, Jamie. Thanks a lot.
All right. Gotta figure out where we are. Equity positioning. I think that's our last item up.
Yeah, I have to admit I was not able to do the amount of work on this that I had been hoping to do. This budget took a little bit more time, but I did find out that the comp plan that our colleagues over in the planning department have been working on does include equity, diversion, and inclusion in the vision statement. So I'm going to chat with them a little bit about how they created this, and then see how we might be able to wrap some of this vision into the work that we're doing over here in tourism.
perfect.
So yeah, I think this is a really good start. It's a great statement, and I think there's a lot that we can be doing with this. And then if you want to take a look at grant criteria next month, we can also roll in DEI into the grant criteria conversation.
Wonderful.
Okay.
Yeah, we don't have to reinvent the wheel.
Yeah, we just want to be aligned with the wheel that's
We
already
want to
turning.
make sure that we thought about the wheel.
Right, right. And that is all I have for you, sir.
All right. So I think we've got anything up for the next meeting? Any agenda items that anybody would like to see?
When's the next meeting? I'm sorry.
Whatever that third Tuesday in September is.
15th, maybe?
Trying to pull my calendar up.
Yeah,
here.
the 15th.
Yeah, unless for some reason we would have to call a special meeting about the budget.
Okay. If nobody else says anything, we can go ahead and take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Is that you, Kathy?
Yeah.
Susan, I think, seconded.
Okay.
We're off the clock.
All right.
Hey, Corey.
Yeah.
I finally got it. They finally put the video of the plan commission up, and I got to listen to what you were talking to. Okay.
Should
I
do
need to
the
go back
same
and
thing?
listen. I'm planning on it.
Yeah. Corey and I were talking about it Friday afternoon, so maybe I'll listen as well.
Yeah, I didn't have much to say. It's just that it was kind of out of the blue.
Yeah,
that's
kind of what my neighbors who are on that planning committee were just like, what? Like, they threw them for a loop, and so they were panicking.
Yeah, your neighbor lives on the block or is on the plan commission?
So on the block. So Terry and Joe Gullisarian, Terry's very much involved with the transplant house.
Okay.
I think she's on the board, or maybe was on the president of the board. And so she, they were at the meeting, or they were on the meeting, I should say.
Yeah.
And they also live on the block.
So which house is theirs? Do you know? Is it the one right next to it, or then there's DeVore?
No, they're on my street on Cell. So I actually bought my house from them.
Okay.
And they've now lived